Never before in the memory of Olympus had the gods witnessed such a sight as the birth of Arion. From the moment the infant opened his eyes, his strength defied all reason, lifting his mighty father, Calus, into the heavens as though the king of the gods were weightless, and treating a thunderbolt, forged from divine fire itself, like a pacifier clutched in his tiny fists. Awe rippled through the assembly of immortals, and soon Mount Olympus shook not with storms or wars, but with celebration. The gods showered Arion with blessings, shields of light, cloaks woven from dawn itself, crowns of gold that shimmered like the Sunday. Every deity, from the greatest Titangent slayer to the humblest guardian spirit, offered a token of love to the newborn child who embodied strength and hope. All rejoiced save one. Vorath, ruler of the underrealm, did not smile, did not offer blessing, did not so much as feign joy. While his kin basked in radiance, he was condemned to shadows, surrounded by whispering spirits who mourned their own demise. The laughter of Olympus only deepened his torment, sharpening his hunger for revenge. He had long awaited the chance to topple Calus and claim the throne of creation itself. That night, Vorath turned to the fates, the weavers of destiny, whose scissors severed the threads of mortal lives. Coiling words like a serpent, he coaxed them into unveiling a forbidden prophecy, that in 18 years, when 7 stars aligned, Calus's power would falter, and the ancient titans could be freed from their prison. With their help, Vorath could overthrow Olympus. But destiny bore a thorn. Arion, son of Calus, was fated to rise against him and bring about his ruin. Enraged, Vorath vowed to crush the infant before prophecy could take root. His minions descended, stealing the child from Olympus and carrying him into the mortal world. There, under moonlight, they forced into his lips a vial of potion brewed from abyssal fire, a drink that could strip even gods of immortality. "Drink every drop," Vorath hissed through his servants. "Then he will be mortal, and then he will be mine." Yet fate, relentless and sly, intervened. The baby spilled the final drop, leaving a spark of divinity intact. Moments later, a mortal couple stumbled across the crying child. To them, long barren and yearning for family, he was a gift from the heavens. They gathered him tenderly, unaware of the storm of destiny that swirled around him. Meanwhile, when Vorath's demons, desperate to complete their mission, transformed into venomous serpents, the infant Arion crushed them effortlessly with his hands, his divine strength still alive within him. Terrified of their master's wrath, they lied, swearing the deed was finished. Olympus searched, but the child was lost. Thus began Arion's mortal life, far from the throne he was born to inherit, destined to struggle between two worlds. Years stretched into decades, and the child grew into a young man whose power was both a gift and a curse. In the quiet village where his mortal parents raised him, Arion's unmatched strength was feared more than praised. A careless gesture could splinter beams, a playful toss could topple walls, and though his heart was kind, the townsfolk saw him only as a cursed misfit. Lonely and misunderstood, Arion began to question whether he belonged at all. His adoptive parents, seeing the sorrow in his eyes, revealed at last the truth they had kept hidden. A medallion adorned with the symbol of the gods, left with him the night he was found. "This," they said, "is your beginning. Seek the temple of Calus, and you may find who you truly are." With hope rekindled, Arion bid farewell and journeyed to the temple. There, beneath towering marble pillars, he prayed with desperate sincerity. Suddenly, thunder split the skies, lightning engulfed the statue of Calus, and stone transformed into living flesh. The colossal figure bent low, his booming voice filled with both pride and sorrow. He revealed all: the abduction, the potion, the deception. Arion was his son, and though Calus longed to restore him, even the king of gods could not undo the magic that bound him to mortality. Only one path remained. Arion must earn his place among the stars by becoming a true hero in the mortal world. With a whistle like a storm's cry, Calus summoned Aetherion, a winged steed, loyal and proud, who swooped down with feathers like moonlight and eyes that gleamed with fire. Together, Arion and Aetherion soared over seas and mountains until they reached a desolate land where laughter lingered only in echoes. There, beside a fountain where playful nymphs danced, they found Talos, the once revered trainer of heroes, now a satyr, half buried in disappointment and cynicism. When caught spying on the maidens, he sputtered and claimed his glory days were long gone. "Heroes?" he scoffed. "I trained dozens, all failures, all except one Achillean, and even he, undone by a single flaw." Yet when Arion lifted a massive stone disk and hurled it into the heavens, the satyr's doubts faltered. Caelus himself confirmed his son's identity with lightning, and Thalos, his old dream reignited, agreed to train him. Days blurred into weeks of grueling drills, swords, archery, agility, and restraint. Under Thalos's relentless eye, Arion learned not only to wield his power but to control it. His journey had begun, but destiny would not wait. On their first test beyond training grounds, cries echoed through the forest. A maiden, Leandra, was ensnared by a monstrous centaur. Without hesitation, Arion leapt to her defense, declaring boldly for the beast to release her. With a single strike, he sent the creature reeling. In that moment, as Leandra's eyes met his, time slowed. Her beauty left him spellbound, his heart no longer his own. Yet she, hardened and wary, rejected gratitude. "I don't need saving," she said, her voice sharp with disdain. But as she walked away into the forest, the seeds of fate had been sown. For Leandra was no stranger at all, but a servant bound to Vorath's schemes. Leandra's tale was one of tragedy and chains. Once, she had given her soul to Vorath, in a desperate bargain to save a man she loved, only to be betrayed when that man abandoned her for another. Now she lived as a pawn, her every move dictated by the Lord of Shadows. Vorath ordered her to ensnare Arion, to draw out his weakness. Yet the closer she lingered to him, the harder her task became. His sincerity disarmed her bitterness, and his kindness, so unlike the cruelty she had known, chipped away at her walls. Meanwhile, the city of Thalosia teetered on the brink of ruin, rife with crime and despair, its people longing for a champion. Arion and Thalos seized the chance, hoping to prove themselves. At first, the crowd mocked, jeering at the notion of a new hero. Then fate staged its cruelest test yet. Leandra appeared, crying for help, and before a gathering crowd, Arion lifted a massive boulder, freeing children trapped beneath it. Cheers erupted, but triumph was short-lived. The boulder was no stone, but the seal of the Hydra. From the depths of earth, the serpent rose, its jaws wide enough to swallow him whole. Gasps echoed as the monster devoured Arion, but moments later he tore free, cleaving its head. Applause thundered, yet horror followed, for each head severed sprouted two more. The battle raged, with Aetherion striking from the skies, and Arion grappling with heads upon heads, until the mountainside itself collapsed, burying them in rubble. When dusk cleared, Arion staggered forth alive, his name now hailed across Greece. Songs of his deeds spread from town to town. Thalosia crowned him their hero, and gifts and glory flowed endlessly. Arion, once an outcast, was adored, but Caelus's warning weighed heavy. Fame was not heroism. True worth lay deeper, beyond applause and gold. Vorath watched, fury rising with every failed attempt to destroy him. He realized brute force could not succeed. So he turned once more to Leandra, demanding she pierce the young hero's heart not with blade, but with love. Though unwilling, the chains of her soul-bound pact left her no choice. She approached Arion, feigning subtle questions of his limits. Yet every encounter only deepened her own torment, for instead of weakness, she found strength of character. When at last Cupid's arrow of true affection struck, Leandra fell into the very trap Vorath had set. She had come to destroy Arion, yet now she was the one undone, lost in his unguarded warmth. Their love bloomed quietly, in moments stolen between training and battle, Leandra's laughter softening his scars, Arion's sincerity healing wounds she thought eternal. But shadows crept always near. Thalos, ever watchful, grew wary, suspecting deception, yet Arion dismissed his concerns, blinded by affection. When Vorath finally emerged, his voice was a whip across Leandra's heart. He demanded betrayal, offering freedom in exchange for Arion's downfall. To save her, Arion accepted a cruel pact, surrendering his divine strength for 24 hours. In that moment, the stars aligned, chains of fire shattered, and the Titans were unleashed, their colossal forms storming Olympus. Caelus and the gods fell swiftly, bound and caged, while Vorath ascended, triumphant at last. In Thalosia, chaos descended with a Cyclops rampaging through the streets. Arion, now powerless, faced it alone, beaten and mocked as the city trembled. Yet Leandra, wounded by guilt, freed Aetherion and sought out Thalos. Together they returned, urging Arion to rise. Though mortal, he stood again, wielding not strength but cunning, blinding the Cyclops with fire, tangling its legs, and casting it from a cliff. Victory was his, but joy was short-lived. In the battle's chaos, Leandra was struck down, her body broken as she shielded him, her thread of life frayed. In breaking his promise, Vorath's pact dissolved, and divinity surged back into Arion. With thunder roaring in his veins, he ascended Olympus, shattering chains, freeing the gods, and hurling the titans into the abyss of storm. Vorath, howling in rage, fled back to the Underrealm. But vengeance lingered. In cruel spite, he ordered the fates to cut Lyandra's thread, severing her life. When Arion returned victorious, she lay motionless, her spirit already drawn into shadow. The cheers of Olympus turned to silence as grief carved through his soul, but love defies even death. Refusing to yield, Arion descended into the Underrealm itself, confronting Vorath amidst rivers of wailing souls. There, before the pit of shadows where the lost wandered eternally, Vorath offered a sinister wager, Lyandra's soul in exchange for Arion's own life. Without hesitation, Arion leapt into the abyss. The pit drained him, aging his body, weakening his spirit, threatening to unravel his very thread. The fates lifted their shears, ready to cut his life short. Yet in that moment, sacrifice transformed him. For true heroism was not in strength nor glory, but in giving all for love. Light burst forth from Arion, his soul blazing so brightly that no scissors could sever it. He rose from the pit, carrying Lyandra's spirit back into life. With newfound divinity, he struck Vorath into the abyss, where the very souls he tormented clawed him into eternal punishment. Olympus erupted in celebration as Arion returned triumphant, his godhood restored, his name forever etched among legends. Yet when Caelus offered him immortality at last, Arion's eyes turned only to Lyandra. Eternal life meant nothing without her. With quiet resolve, he renounced Olympus, choosing instead to walk as mortal beside the woman he loved. Together, they returned to Thalosia, where crowds greeted them not only as saviors but as family. The gods, honoring his sacrifice, set his glory among the stars, so that mortals for all time could look up and remember the hero who chose love over eternity. Thalos, watching with pride, knew his dream had finally been fulfilled, for he had trained the greatest hero the world had ever known, not merely in strength, but in heart. Thus ended the tale of Arion, the god-born who became a man, and the man who became more than a god. Thank you for watching.